Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Puppy Kitten Babies, who says, am I the arsehole for finally snapping at my ex's girlfriend after constant passive aggressive comments? Hi Reddit, this happened earlier today and I'm still kind of stewing over it. So I need to know if I overreacted or if it was justified. I, 29 female, was invited to a friend's barbecue. My ex Jake, 30 male, and I broke up about 2 years ago. It was mutual. We both agreed that we weren't right for each other long term. And since we share a close friend group, we stayed civil and occasionally see each other at gatherings. It's usually fine. Jake's been dating Sophie, 26 female, for about 6 months. I didn't know her well, but every time we've been around each other, she seems to go out of her way to make little passive-aggressive jabs at me. Stuff like, wow, you're still single. That's brave. Or, must be nice to have so much free time without kids. I've always let it slide to avoid drama. A bit more info. Even though we broke up, there have been multiple moments where it's obvious Jake isn't fully moved on. For one, he still finds excuses to text me random stuff, like sending memes or asking about old inside jokes we had. He'll accidentally bring up memories from when we were together when we're in a group, or mention songs and places that meant something to us. On top of that, a few mutual friends have let it slip he's told them he still has feelings, or at least isn't fully over our relationship. Nothing inappropriate while he's with Sophie, as far as I know, but it's clear there are lingering feelings there, and I think Sophie might sense it too, which is probably part of the reason she's so weirdly hostile towards me. Back to the story. Today, Sophie was at it again. Every time I was within earshot, she dropped little digs like, some people just can't move on, huh? Or, guess it takes some people longer to grow up. I ignored it for hours. But then towards the end of the night, she made another comment. Well, not everyone can handle being in a healthy relationship. That was it for me. I turned to her and said, you're right, it takes a special kind of person to date a guy still hung up on his ex. It went dead silent. Sophie looked stunned. Jake looked beyond uncomfortable, and a couple of our friends awkwardly tried to change the subject. I left soon after because I didn't want things to get worse. She was making digs at me all night and I finally stood up for myself. But part of me feels like maybe I went too far by throwing that in her face, even though it's true. I never planned to use what Jake said and done like that, and now I wonder if I made it unnecessarily messy. So Reddit, am I the arsehole for finally snapping at my ex's girlfriend after constant passive-aggressive comments? You can only take the high road so many times, and this has been going on for months. She's been taking shots at you with passive-aggressive comments. There's only a certain amount anyone can take before they're going to snap back, and honestly, the comeback was spot on. It was precise, and one from all that you said so far is true. If she's insecure about, Jake's feelings in this situation, then she needs to be addressing it with him, not taking it out on you, because what's that going to solve in the end? Beautiful term says to this one, not the arsehole. She fucked around and found out. Also, if she is so happy in a new relationship, she wouldn't work so hard to bring another woman down. Empty Nest says, was it the best way to handle the situation? Probably not. Could Sophie have been more civil? Absolutely. There are a few things at play here. Literally, everyone has sat there in silence while this brat makes constant digs at you. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is a free pass. Silence means they agree. So for 6 months or so, all your friends allowed this BS to continue. At any given time, your ex, any person in the group, literally anyone could have told her to drop this shit. It isn't cool. Until she came along, there was peace, and she is single-handedly ruining it. Nobody said a word. Nobody tried to end the drama. This chick comes along and just stirs the pot while everyone watched. I bet my buttons that if Sophie had been saying stuff to or about another member of the group, that person would have been upset. There's keeping the peace, and there is this. Letting her run her mouth isn't keeping the peace. It's allowing a pick-me girl to run unchecked because nobody in that group has got a spine. A real friend stands up for you, both to your face and behind your back. None of these people are standing up for you. Not even when you were right there. My best friend's ex-husband got with his affair partner publicly after the split. I was working a short-term gig as a bartender. The new woman would have come in, with my best friend's ex, and run her mouth about my bestie. Every single time she did, I gave her a single warning. Stop it, or I will refuse to serve you. Sometimes she stopped, sometimes she got cut off. A few times she even got 86'd. Because a friend is there for you, even if you are not around. Because a true friend doesn't let anyone put down, belittle, bully, or even make constant passive-aggressive remarks. Honestly, I have to say everyone sucks here, except OP. A person can only take so much before they snap. Your friend group sounds like a bunch of passive jellyfish. Nobody is going to be like that to anyone I care about in my presence. I think that comment pretty much said it all, right? But OP did come in with an update and said, "Hey again Reddit, just wanted to post a quick update since a lot happened." Well, I'm still kind of processing it, but it feels worth sharing. So after I left the barbecue and posted, I got a flurry of texts from mutual friends asking along the lines of, "Damn, that was awkward but also overdue." Apparently everyone noticed Sophie's digs throughout the day, and more than one person told me they were surprised I lasted as long as I did before finally saying something. Jake, for what it's worth, hasn't said a single word to me. Not an apology, not a, "Hey, that was a lot." Nothing. Radio silence. But I did get a very long, very dramatic message from Sophie last night, basically accusing me of trying to sabotage a relationship and calling me emotionally manipulative. I didn't respond. I don't see the point, especially because, here's the kicker, I've actually been seeing someone for a few months now. His name is Daniel. He's thoughtful, mature, low drama, and most importantly, not still caught up on an ex. We've been keeping things fairly private while we found our footing, but last night after the chaos of the barbecue, I posted a pic of us to the friend group chat, just smiling at a coffee shop, totally normal. Within the hour, Sophie left the chat. Make of that what you will. Anyway, Daniel has been incredibly supportive about everything, and honestly, I think seeing that photo and realizing that I 100% moved on was the final crack in whatever illusion Sophie was holding on to. One of our mutuals mentioned that things were not going well between her and Jake, which, yeah, that tracks. So yeah, I don't feel bad about what I said anymore. Maybe I could have been softer, but sometimes the truth is sharp and people don't like how it feels. Thanks again for all the response. Reading through the comments really helped me feel like I wasn't just being petty or reactive. I'm good now. Actually, I'm better than good. And Daniel brings me coffee and emotional security. So that's a win. So it all seems like it worked out in the end, but what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, I need to give you a trigger warning before we go into our next story. You'll get it from the title, but there is talk of murder within the story. And it's from Crow, who says, "My 30 boyfriend 31 killed a man 10 years ago. How do I get my mum to accept him?" I've changed names and ages to not get recognized. I met David about 6 months ago. I met him through friends, and we clicked and became good friends pretty fast. One night, when we were drinking, we began talking about the past. He told me he'd been admitted to a psych hospital a couple of years, and then told me he had killed a friend in a psychotic break and had been all over news media. His story were all over the place when it happened, so I recognized him when he told me. I just hadn't made the connection. His sentence was to undergo psychiatric treatment, and he's on medication now and really regrets doing it. He tells me it was like a dream, and he remembers it as such. He was also on a lot of drugs at the time. He's completely different now and I trust him. He's the sweetest guy I've ever met, and to be honest, I can't connect him to that person who was all over the media. Well, we started dating a month ago. I brought him home to meet my mother yesterday and she recognized him. She didn't say anything to his face but called me today. She was completely freaking out and telling me that I can't date a murderer. I told her what I told you. He was psychotic. He's not the same person who did that, and he's heavily medicated with no intentions of stopping. But she was just completely freaking out, telling me she feared for my safety and she wouldn't have anything to do with him, and I have to leave him immediately. I told her that wasn't going to happen, and she said that as long as I'm dating him, she doesn't want to see me and he's ultimately going to kill me. I understand completely she's fearful and anxious about the situation, but I still think she's overreacting. It wasn't a deliberate murder, and it honestly annoys me to no end that she thinks I'm not able to judge his character. So yeah, how do I get my mum to accept this situation? Am I just doomed to not see her again? Could really use some input. Sandman42 says to this one and quotes OP first, saying, I understand completely she's fearful and anxious about the situation, but I still think she's overreacting, and then says, I don't think that's overreacting at all. Overreacting would be if she started screaming the second she saw him. But she kept her composure and was polite until he left, and then made her concerns heard to you privately. That's not overreacting. Quoting again, saying, it wasn't a deliberate murder. That honestly annoys me to no end that she thinks I'm not able to judge his character. And then says, honestly, that is not a comforting thought. That means you are finding solace in the fact that he wasn't in control when he committed that murder. What if he loses control again? What if he goes off his meds and/or has another psychotic break? People can and do have mental health relapses and breaks even when taking meds as prescribed. Second, you've known him for 6 months. Take a look around the sub and all of the 3, 5, 10, 15 plus year marriages and relationships where someone is betrayed or cheated on by a long-term partner. Those people get blindsided by people they live with and have known for decades. You really think you're qualified to judge exactly who this guy is after half a year? To be clear, I'm not suggesting your boyfriend is bad or violent or even get violent again. I am, however, pointing out that your mother's concerns and trying to help you see how her concerns are valid. Ultimately, you make your own choices and decisions on who to date and marry. It's wonderful that your boyfriend got the help he needed and turned his life around with the second chance he got. The person he killed, however, does not get a second chance. And many people find that crime to be unforgivable. No matter how far he's come or whether or not you or he have to come to terms with what he did. Basically, just because you're okay with what he did now doesn't mean everyone will be. And you certainly should not expect people to have your view on it. And for me, I'm totally with that comment. I'm trying to put myself in OP's mum's position and you know, imagine hearing that your daughter is dating someone who's murdered in the past and it was from a psychotic break, so he was out of control. And look, I'm not saying that people can't change and, you know, he's not much better now or anything, but would I want my family member in that position? Absolutely not. It just the way I feel about that. I mean, a little bit off topic at the same time as well, but in the first paragraph, OP says, you know, they were drinking and talking about the past and then saying he's on medication. That, I mean, it's a bit of jumping statement because I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but it sounds like mixing alcohol with psychiatric medications. So Kalicious says, a lot of chronically ill people can't find partners. That's because living with chronic illness is tough. And taking it on when you don't have to, in other words, as the partner of that person, is tougher still. And make no mistake, your partner is severely mentally ill. If you haven't seen it yet, that's because he hasn't seen fit to show it to you. And then quote saying he was psychotic. He's not the same person who did that, and he's heavily medicated with no intentions of stopping. And then says you're underestimating the depth of your partner's illness. Psychosis, this severe, is no picnic by itself. Having been convicted of a murder excludes a person from many, many areas of society. Both of these things together add up to the fact that this man is severely handicapped and may never be able to be the partner that you and your mother both think you deserve. You've obviously made up your mind to be with this man, but don't close your ears to the opinions of people who care about you. Keep an open mind. Another commenter quotes OP about the overreacting thing and says, if you try and see it from her perspective, what do you see? Her daughter brings home a man who is severely mentally ill and has proven himself to be extremely dangerous in the wrong circumstances. Additionally, daughter is not educated to understand or deal with mental illness and doesn't seem to appreciate the seriousness of his history. It's not a situation you want for your child, and something this severe is not something you can learn to accept. Furthermore, you have to accept that dating this guy will mean your friends and family are going to avoid you because they're scared of him. And one more comment which says, you've signed up for this. You know there's risks involved. You're aware of his past in the situation. That's your decision one way or another. But your mother does not have to accept it. My mum has told me that parents spend their lives worrying about their kids in one way or another. Knowing what she does about your boyfriend, of course she's going to be nerve-wracked. Anyone who cares about you would be. It doesn't mean she hates him, and it doesn't mean she doesn't trust you. It means she's concerned. And she would strongly prefer that you guys not be together. If you dated a guy with a history of spousal abuse or something, you'd probably at least understand where she's coming from. She wants you to be happy, but not if it means risking sleeping next to someone who's had a psychotic break and killed someone. That's going to be part of this relationship, and you shouldn't take it personally. Because if something does happen with him years down the line, your mother might not have been able to keep you from him. But she'll at least be able to say she tried to get you away from him. She doesn't want you to get hurt, or worse, and look back on the fact that she let him into her home and embraced him, knowing what he was capable of. That's a lot to ask someone whose primary concern is your safety and well-being. So Opie updated the post 2.5 months after that one and says, "Hi, thanks for the responses in the last thread. A lot of people told me things I didn't want to hear, like I couldn't judge a person after knowing him for 6 months. Which I still kinda think you can, just not as much as I hoped. I guess some people expect something crazy to have happened, but nothing really has. You just weren't as empathetic as I thought. I realized pretty quickly that if I didn't call him first, he wouldn't call me for days. When I told him I had a very unpleasant encounter with a guy, he just laughed and told me that if it were him, he would be happy to get the attention. And I just couldn't get over that he killed a guy, honestly. When I was laying in bed and he was doing something else, I couldn't stop thinking about how vulnerable I was. I didn't feel safe. So I broke up with him. I still think he deserves happiness and to move on from what he did, but I'm not the one for him and I can't help him. My mum was very relieved when I told her we broke up. I didn't tell her why, just that it didn't work out. And although she didn't cut me out of her life like she threatened, she's been a lot warmer towards me since. About the breakup, he actually took it so well that I don't think he was ever really in love with me. It was basically me breaking up and him saying, "You gotta do what's best for you, so I wish you good luck." I'm kinda heartbroken that I apparently didn't mean that much to him, but I'm still fine. We still talk though, which is probably stupid, but he's a fun guy to talk to, and I don't feel like I can judge him for doing something while on a psychotic breakdown. Also, as I stated in the last thread, he has no intentions of stopping with his medication. He knows he needs it for the rest of his life, and as long as he follows that, he'll probably continue to be in my life. The top 2 comments on this one said, first one from Earl Grey Hair in quote saying, "And when I told him I had a very unpleasant encounter with a guy, he just laughed and told me if it were him, he'd be happy to get the attention." And says, "Jesus." Then quotes again and says, "As long as he follows that, he could probably continue to be in my life." And then says, "Just having him in your life is still a risk. It was a friend that he killed after all, and you can't guarantee that he will stay on that medication, even if he insists he will." No Context says, in quotes, "I don't feel like I can judge him for doing something while on a psychotic breakdown," and says, that doing something happened to be murdering somebody. So you broke up with him. He didn't seem to care, and you want to stay friends. I'm guessing you're keeping this part from your mother. Just because you removed the label from your relationship doesn't mean you're out of danger, if any danger was present to begin with. So basically all you have done is broke up to hide the fact that you are still seeing him from your mother. Jesus, OP, I think you need some help here. Naivety, lack of common sense and self-esteem seem to be big issues here. And I kind of felt like that comment rang true at the very end there. Naivety pretty much says it all. From the very start, they met, they clicked, they were drinking while he's on his medication, I assume, as he's on it for life, and then tells her that, he killed someone in a psychotic break. And then just goes to, we started dating. I mean, holy moly. Again, I'm not saying that people can't change. I'm not saying that he hasn't changed. But if a family member told me that, I'd be just like OP's mum. But what about you guys? What do you think in this situation? Put yourself in OP's mum's shoes. How would you feel about it? One of your family members dating someone that's murdered someone? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from PsyTranceDude99 from the Petty Revenge subreddit. And it says, "Steal my commission? Fine. Enjoy doing my work while I work as a consultant." So, my first job was a retail job selling audio and TVs. I worked at a store that is basically Walmart. The numbers represent what I made in US. I also worked in a third world country too, so the numbers may be lower, etc. So we made commission only and worked the retail floor. While you had a basic pay, it fell away if you went over commission. So if your basic was $500 and you made commission of $550, you would made the larger number. We also got paid pension and medical insurance as per the law. As a salesperson, I also had to set up displays, do stock count, restock shelves, and do pricing. It sucked, but it was part of my job. I also had to make sure I sold stuff to make money. Side notes, I was really good at making displays, restocking, and all the admin. In fact, my OCD and ADHD meant I was almost too good. This meant my sales sucked a lot. So I worked with this guy called Lorenzo because that's his name. I'm not sure why I found that funny. Now, this dude was a shark. He would steal sales, i.e. hijack customers, dispute sales, etc. Basically, he would do anything but the admin tasks. So basically sell. The one day I sold a really expensive TV and audio combo that made me $300. Basically a big chunk of change. I'm super happy and go enjoy my weekend. I come back Monday and then I discover my sale got reverse put into Lorenzo's name because it was his customer. So basically I lost that $300 and I couldn't dispute it. I was fucking livid. I decided I was done with this job and everything else. So I went to the manager's office and quit on the spot, signed all the papers and walked out, all before 9 AM Monday morning. Now, all this admin had not been done. So pricing, stock count, restocking, display making and adjusting, because Lorenzo just never did it. So I just left everything like it is, and as one can imagine, Monday was really messy after a weekend. I get a panicked phone call from my manager the following Tuesday morning saying that he wanted me back because all the admin wasn't done and corporate were on his ass. Long story short, I agreed that I would help if I could come as a contractor, where I get paid benefits and pension, a generous hourly rate. It worked out to 4 times my basic salary and a quarter of the hours. So I basically got paid $2,000 a month to be a subcontracted manager. He and I agreed on the terms and go back to work Wednesday. This is where it was beautiful. I had to train Lorenzo to do everything and document where and how he made mistakes. I didn't have to get my hands dirty, all I did was direct and tell Lorenzo how and where to put things. I worked 10 AM until 2 PM and got weekends off. So seeing Lorenzo struggle was brilliant. Listening to him complain and moan was also heartwarming. While he worked, I would just take out my laptop and sit at a desk overlooking the floor, while I video gamed and did what I wanted, all while supervising Useless-O. He moved to another store after 6 weeks because he hated the fact that I was on his ass. In the end, I got rehired full-time, basically being a trainer and subcontracted manager. I was hired by corporate/head office, not by my store. I worked for a year and then moved on. So don't mess with a guy who does all the heavy lifting. So people were obviously loving that OP got a 1-up on them, and they were asking for an encore from OP basically. So OP did come in with another update some days later and says, from the same subreddit Petty Revenge, and says too hungover to open the store and use me as your stand-in manager. Not my problem. Goodbye. So this story is based on my retail days. Now, I told the story of how I became a retail consultant here. This happened after I sorted out my colleague, Useless-O, and moved on to supervising managers. So retail can be a hot mess at times. This hot can be compounded by incompetent and just useless managers. This story takes place 6 months after the Useless-O incident. So I was told by corporate to help, advise or keep tabs, insert jargon here, of a manager called Donovan. Again, he's called Donovan because that's his actual name. Now Donovan was just clueless as a manager. He didn't know his earhole from his arsehole and couldn't distinguish between profit or loss, let alone what profit margin was. He also hated me because of my job and what my position was. If you read the previous story, I forgot to mention that he was the one who signed over my commission to Useless-O as a sales manager. He got reprimanded for that, which pushed back his store manager promotion by a few months. He didn't like me very much. Now the issue that I had to help with or observe was the fact that the store's turnover on Tuesdays was very low. For example, when stores were making $10,000 daily targets, this store was making $3,000 daily dollar targets. So I get told to come in on Mondays and see what's happening. Now Mondays is where salespeople prep the store for the weekly sale, which runs Tuesday to Monday the following week. So it was opening day of sales basically. I arrive at 7:30 AM on Monday, expecting the store to be open for employees to set up for the day. Customers' hours started from 8:30. Don't know where Van, or Donovan, is nowhere to be found. I message and call him. Nothing. It hits 8:30. Nothing. At 9 he opens the store looking worse for wear. Basically, he just opens the store, ignores customers, and just tells everyone to get to work. No briefing, no nothing. He doesn't greet me. So basically, I spend the time helping the salespeople and figuring out what they have to do. The poor salespeople are freaking out. One guy even quit on the spot. Understandable. So I jump in. I guess my gaming and coffee session will have to wait. I help them change prices, shift displays, hell, I even dealt with yelling Karens. All this is happening while Donovan is passed out in the office. Now Monday is critical as the store launch sales on Tuesdays. Managers always brief salespeople on price changes, how to set up displays, etc. So as I'm helping doing this, the regional manager, RM, comes in. He and I have a very frosty relationship. Another story for another day. This is 12 PM, like 3 hours after opening. Regional manager demands to know why I'm doing this. To be fair, I bluntly told him that I'm trying to help the salespeople set up for the upcoming sale, and Donovan is busy in his office. The regional manager storms into Donovan's office and fireworks flew. Basically, regional manager saw that Donovan was hungover and not doing his job. I report my findings to regional manager and he tells me to finish helping out until 2 PM, my contracted hours. He weirdly thanks me profusely. Regional manager doesn't usually thank people. I finish up and go home. This is where the petty revenge comes in. Donovan says he gave me the job because he signed off my commission to use Lesso and helped me set myself up as a consultant. So basically he tried to throw me under the corporate train because he wasn't doing his job. Now Donovan was also hungover and was like this every Monday. He thought that he could get me to do his job for a couple of weeks while he could have some blowout weekends with the boys. After a long legal process, Donovan was fired. Even had the gall to ask me for a job. Didn't know his ear hole from his arsehole. I love it when people say that. Some of these places, man, I have little sympathy for the companies at the same time either because they've hired these people. I know some people have the gift of the gab and, they can talk themselves into a position. But one of the stories, and I probably told you about this one in the past, and in some of my first working years, about 19, still naive, still learning everything and how the world works, all this kind of stuff. I worked in a warehouse for that insurance company, which I probably told you a couple of stories about. And the manager we had there was absolutely fucking useless, but still thought he was the big bollocks of the place, I worked my ass off there, but he would still try to pull you up like power trippy ways. You could do everything perfect, but he would still have to try and put his little stamp on it to say, oh, no, you need to do it this way. And, it was no different from the way you just did it. But his boss was the financial director of the company, an early 50s woman who was a bit fiery, it has to be said. And I remember one day where this manager started getting a bit lax and started coming a bit late here and there, testing the waters. It was a Monday. I was in the warehouse just walking around, setting up for the morning kind of thing. And we had these big roller shutter doors. You push the button, the roller shutter door goes all the way to the roof and, back down. I just took in a delivery. So I pressed the button to go back down and the roller shutter door starts coming down. In the meantime of this, I got distracted by the financial director who was looking for said manager and he wasn't in. And I was just about to say he's not in yet when the door is just literally near the bottom of the floor as it's rolling down automatically and manager comes rolling underneath it like Indiana Jones style. I'm pretty sure I have told this story before. I'm going to carry on anyway. He rolls under the door, immediately gets up. He said morning, but didn't even make eye contact like he was like some sort of stunt man. He was showing off and, that was just an amazing thing he did. Got up, walked between us and walked straight past us into the office. I was just I just stared at her like, really? And she just said to me, excuse me a moment, and walked off. And I didn't see him or her for a couple of hours. Got a few stories of what a Burke that guy was. He nearly rolled the forklift once as he set up his phone camera and was trying to just turn the forklift as fast as he could just before it got to his phone camera. So it was like a cool shot or something. I was just like, oh, fuck's sake. But those are for another time. But what do you guys make of this situation? Have you ever encountered your own useless manager? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below or share them over on r/Mark Narrations. Would love to see them over there. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.